everybody, this is Jean here from Truelove Quilts for You. Today's our block party, our new block number 8. But I just wanted to say, if I was thinking about it, if somebody on YouTube perhaps just clicked on this video or a video of mine, these block parties, you just see it on the block, you know, block number, whatever. I mean, you don't have a clue. Maybe this is your first time. Just to recap, I'm doing a block of the week club, a sampler quilt block of the week. And if you go back in my videos, you can see each week with the block number. That's what this is all about. I have other videos on this. I'm doing other videos, but this is particularly for this sampler quilt that we're making block of the week. And we'll have done 8 blocks. Anyway, this week's block, our applique, if you remember. So hopefully from last week's instructions, you have your paper and you have your glue stick. There's, as I was saying, there's tons of other ways that you can make applique blocks. One of them is a needle turn, as I was saying, one of the most traditional ways. But also there's a way that you could take your pattern and you have a interfacing, a very thin interfacing, that you stitch the right side to the right side of your pattern. You stitch it all the way around your shape, right side to right side, and then on the interfacing side of your applique, you make a small slit. You can just lift it up and make a little slit. Turn it inside out like you would a pillowcase. Turn it inside out and then smooth all the edges. So there you have like a fully lined, just for argument's sake, a fully lined heart with no raw edges. And then you can attach that with perhaps a blanket stitch, a decorative stitch, or even by hand, obviously, you know, to keep that lovely edge. That's another way. Somebody commented, and there's a whole bunch of ways. I don't do a lot of applique, and when I do an easy one, which is this one that we've done. Now, I gave you a sneak preview, right, of last week's block. Lovely, real simple. This applique heart, I tell you in depth how to make it. This is our block number 8. It's a patchwork, 4-patchwork heart block. I have to admit, I tried to, you'll see me at the end of this video trying to center my block. It's not centered. Because what was I doing? I was actually using my ruler, and I don't really know how to. I don't know, like it's 12.5. I cut it, as you would know, look, I mean, it's a 12.5 because we make the background bigger and then we cut it down. But I was following the actual lines and it didn't come out. It didn't come out. But this is the block I have my tutorial on. I wanted just to say that because I had given you a quick preview, one of my subscribers, Jane Stevens, hello Jane, she brought to my attention, she actually quickly made it. No, obviously not a beginner, or maybe she is, because it's very simple. It's a very simple, if you look at it, and you've been sewing now for however long, you could figure that out. I show you the tutorial. This is very, very simple. So she actually made the heart block. She cut out her own heart. Funny. But what she did is she treated it as a snowball block. Now, if you remember, our block number 2, week number 2 in our block party, we actually made a bunch of snowball blocks. Do you remember that? The ones with the corners. Well, what Jane did is she sent me a picture of her quilt heart applique block with 4 corners, snowball block. I really liked it. I'm thinking, why didn't I think of that? Because this is pleasant. It's very, very nice. I'm being very, very safe with my my blocks. Very, very safe. And I'm thinking, oh, you guys are all beginners. I mean, you're so much more adventuresome than is that a word, adventurous or adventuresome? Than me, because I'm very safe. But she and you have lots of colors. It's funny. So anyway, I was like so impressed. I'm like, forget that. Look what I did. And I centered it really well, and I'll tell you how. This is the block that I do the tutorial on this one. If you want, again, what I've done is she was saying the corner blocks. What I did is, if you refer back to our snowball quilt block, you make squares, you iron them in half to get that diagonal, and then you put that diagonal from the inside to the inside, and you stitch along maybe a thread. Remember, a thread towards the corner to allow for the curve. Remember that? Refer back to block number 2, the snowball block. Well, what I did after I appliqued this heart, which again I used 4 different fabrics on a background on a another fabric. I used 5 different prints here. I cut out after I squared up my block. Okay, after I squared up my block to 12.5 inches, I then, because it's bigger, I cut my 12.5 inch square, then I attached my snowball block corners, and it's still 12.5 inches. If you want to do this, I cut 4 of these fabrics, and if you noticed, she gave the idea of each one is in an opposite corner of your colorway. I cut 4 corners pieces, 4 squares, 3.5 inches square. So there's not a tutorial on it, but you can figure it out. If you want to go back to block number 2, figure out how to do your snowball block corners. So I cut 4 3.5 inch squares for this revised block. and it's centered. Oh, and how I actually centered it, I actually took this ruler. You know me and my rulers. I took this ruler, and then I really did measure. It's like 1.5 inches from there, and 1.5 inches from that piece, and 2 inches up there, something like that. And I really centered it well. I'm real pleased with that. That's pretty, isn't it? I like it. I mean, I like this one, and I thought, well, I have an extra block. Maybe I'll make a little pillow out of it. That's what we do with blocks or whatever. But I just wanted to change up. I liked that colorway, but I like this one also. So again, 5 different patterns. Your 4 patchwork block here. I show you how to use paper for your pattern, and also for the stabilizer. Again, there's different ways I explained to you about the stabilizer last week. If you're again just tuning in, I give you the few bits you need in last week's block number 7's tutorial for block number 8. Anyway, so that's my little block for today. Oh, and I want to thank Jane. I want to thank Jane for making it a little bit more interesting. Mine was boring. I mean, it's not boring. Well, yeah, it is a little bit. Which one do you like better? Yeah. I like this one. This is pretty colorway. I like the black. And I thought, oh, well, maybe I really like the black. I like the blacks that I have in my thing. I thought, well, maybe I'll do that. And I'm like, I can't make the same thing twice. I get so bored. So I just pulled some other ones and made it a little bit more, maybe a little bit more springy. But 3.5 inch squares on the corner if you want to do it. After your block looks like this, then you attach your corner snowball units. So that's that. So again, thank you very much, Jade. I wanted to clear something up. 2 things. My Jen is coming a little bit later on, actually. This is Friday morning. She's coming a little bit later to help me. Debbie Melton has very kindly typed up all of the, pretty much like the instructions. My video in itself is an instruction, and most of you can follow my video, my cutting instructions, but she's very kindly typed up cutting things, a written thing of what I'm saying, and it's really nice. But we've only gotten the first 4 written instructions onto my web page. So Jen is coming to add the next ones, because Debbie Mountain, another subscriber, has emailed me with the instructions, and I don't know how to do that. My kids are out of town, and I don't know how to do that. So hopefully Jen will come. But as I said, mostly my instructions are my instructions. Just real quick, I wanted to tell you, I got my fabric for my quilt that I'm making. Finished my quilt. Again, not the block party, but I finished my quilt. If you remember, I'm working on this. It's a big quilt. It's a decent sized quilt. And this, I finally got it, is my fabric. It's real pretty. It's like a tan with a it's one of the colorways here. It's that color. So there you go. So there's going to be, I'm going to put a white small border around it, and then this is the fabric I've been waiting on. I just got it. It's pretty. It'll be pretty. Big quilt. And I just got it, but I got it, and I thought, oh, I'm going to go sew. I just was feeling slightly under the weather, actually. So I've just been hanging around in my family room and whatever. Oh, I was watching the Olympics. I'm not into sports as much, but my husband and I were laughing. Did you see? Oh, real quick, I just want to tell you. Did you see the the girl who was a skier? I was watching it on the news, and I thought, what is she doing? Is this the Olympics? There's a half pipe, one of those things that go like that. And they, these snowboarders and skateboarders, not in the Winter Olympics, but they go up and they do flips and, turns and everything, and grab their snowboards and their skis. Well, this girl, I'm watching, I'm thinking, all she's doing, she's going, on skis. I'm thinking, that's the Olympics? Well, here, this girl, through sort of a loophole, which a lot of people are upset about, she had been going to all these different meets, all these different shows, I don't know, skiing shows or whatever, and would qualify, and then she would do nothing. She would just do nothing and ski. And blah, blah, blah. I could do that, right? Well, here other people were like, I'm going to be an Olympian, and they would go off the half pipe and they would do all their tricks, but some of them would mess up, doing a trick or fall or bobble or something, I don't know. And she, out of 17 qualifiers, she came in 15th place or something like that, doing nothing. And I said, there was a big hoo-ha about it. It's like this loophole. Anyway, we were having a laugh about that. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. We're enjoying the Olympics. Oh, did you see where the newscaster said, it was so funny. He said, it came up on the television, the Winter Olympics are held at P.F. Chang's. I saw, yeah, because it's like Pyeongchang or something. It was just so funny. So every time I'm like, the Olympics are on, they're at P.F. Chang's. Anyway, if you don't know, P.F. Chang's is a restaurant, an Asian restaurant in this area. Anyway, I'm babbling. Block number 8. It's a heart. Jen said, oh, make a heart. It's like for true love. I'm like, how corny, Jen. Anyway, there it is. Block number 8. Hope you enjoy it. Put your corners on. Have fun. Lots of true love from me to you. Okay, folks. Thanks. Bye. This is a PS. My camera clicked off, but I just remembered. I just wanted to tell you that, remember I was saying about our Instagram. And it's a hashtag. You have to post on your Instagram, if you have it, a picture of your blocks, and then it's a hashtag, Jeans Block Party 2018. I forgot about it. Somebody set it up, so there's a hashtag on Instagram that you post it on your page, and then it goes hashtag to, and it's all one, hashtag JEANS, no hyphen, Jeans BLOCK PARTY 2018, hashtag Jeans Block Party 2018. So there's quite a few of blocks up on Instagram, the hashtag, and there's also send me your blocks on the webpage. I get a and we have tons of them. It's really, really nice. I'm trying to do my best. When we make a block, there's this like a flurry of people sending me their blocks, so I'll get them up on the web page eventually. So hope you're enjoying that. That's just my little thing. Instagram hashtag JeansBlockParty2018. I'm going to save a little bit of time this time as far as cutting instructions. What I want you to do is, you've seen your finished heart applique. What I want you to do is, from 4 different fabrics of your fat quarters or your yardage, I just want you to cut 4 5-inch squares, okay? I think we've done that enough that you know how you can figure out to square it up and to cut a 5-inch square off of your ruler. So I'm just going to save a little bit of fabric. I'm doing this configuration here, but what I wanted to do, as you saw our background piece, which has to measure 12.5 inches, what I'm doing is, just to make it easy for myself, is I'm taking my 12.5-inch ruler here, and I'm just putting it on my background fabric, and I'm literally going to cut just a ragged edge, just a large, much bigger, about, I guess that's about 13, maybe 14-inch square, 13.5-inch square, just so when we go to finish it, it's just rough cut, we can just cut this. This will be a perfect 12.5-inch square, because we're starting out with our background fabric. So that's our background fabric. Now, what I want you to do is, actually we'll do that in a minute. Now you might think, oh, why are you doing this? You're throwing me in at the deep end. What I want you to do is, I want you to take a piece of white paper and just trim it to about, this paper is what, 11.5 inches, 8 by 11. Just trim it to about 10 inches, roughly, about 10 inches. Now, what I would like you to do is, you're going to fold the paper. This is what? This is about 8.5 by 10. Either way, you're going to fold the paper in half. You can do it either way. You can do it on the long side or the short side. I'm doing mine on the shorter side. So now, this is where your artistic freedom comes in, and my inability to put something on my web page like a template. But you don't need it, and I want to show you what we're going to accomplish. Just like in kindergarten, do you remember you did your cutouts, you did your snowflakes, you opened up your paper with a pen, and with this fold towards on the left-hand side. Or I guess if you're right-handed, you wanted to do it this way. But what you're going to be doing, you're just going to draw half of a heart, okay? It's not hard, and you can mess around with it. I'm going to start at this end, and I'm going to come around here, and I'm going to do that. Now that probably is a little bit of a fat heart. So, but what I'm going to do is, I'll show you with a nice pair of paper scissors. I'm going to cut this out. I quite like a pointy bottom. I'm going to cut this out and see what I have. It's all trial and error, but this is the beauty of your own quilt. Because you're like, I made that. It's your pattern. It's nobody else's pattern. Now, I like that heart. It's a little bit fat. So I'm just going to come up from this. Just going to come up from that and just shave it off a bit. And you might find that you're going to do this a couple times. By all means, if you have a heart pattern somewhere, trace it out. But look at that, 2 seconds to make a pretty heart. Now, what we're going to do is, you just want to come over, and we are going to find, even on this piece of fabric that's not the proper size, just going to find the middle. Just crease it. Just crease it like that. And again, we're going to trim this down, but this is approximately the middle, if you can see your background fabric. And you can see that when just eyeballing it, you have the same size here, the same size there. That is a nice, pretty size heart. By all means, you can make it larger with a larger piece of paper. You can go to town. You can make it taller and skinnier, whatever your heart is. I quite like this one. and it will look nice on my 12. This is my 12-inch. It will look lovely on my 12.5-inch square, finishing at 12 inches. So now what we do is we'll put that aside for a moment. What we do is we're going to make a 4 patch in whatever pleasing configuration you want. I think I'll do this way and that. So what we're doing is we're laying out a block as such, and we're going to be sewing a seam, just like we do our 4 patch. You're going to sew a seam there, and you're going to sew a seam there. And then you're going to come back and do what? These are going to be your 1/4 inch. These are going to be your 1/4 inch, and then you're going to come back and you're going to sew the middle seam. So you're going to have a nice, tidy, right point in the match, lovely 4 patch. And there is our lovely pattern for our block. And if you've made your heart a little bit bigger, you can make it a bit smaller. You can maybe make these a little bit larger, but I think that I like that configuration. My point's going to go down there because we're going to cut this heart out. But right for now, I'm going to sew my 4 patch block together. This seam, and the middle seam, and I'll be back. So I just wanted to show you, I've sewn these 2 together and these 2 together. Now what are we going to do? We're going to take this over to our ironing board. We're going to set our seams, and we're going to, just like in all the other blocks, we're going to press this seam this way. We're going to open up, roll that over, press that seam that way. And then when we go to stitch our center seam, we can nest those lovely ironed seams. One goes one way, one goes the other way, and you make a perfect point in the middle. So I'm going to go do that now. As you can see, I've sewn my 4 patch block together. Now with my pattern that I've cut out, I'm going to line up the curve of the heart right there on that seam. And I'm going to put my point down there on this seam. And then I'm going to pin it. I'm just going to pin it on my fabric here. It's a little bit, not like a sewing pattern, it's a little bit stiff, depending on the paper you use. I just use copy paper. You might want to put quite a few pins in it to secure it. So now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to just cut out my heart. I'm going to get a nice pair of sharp scissors, making this as smooth a cut as possible, because we're going to be blanket stitching. Now there's all sorts of applique. You've seen all sorts of applique. But this method, hopefully it's in the thing, you can come in however. We're going to be using a blanket stitch. Even the most basic of machines has a blanket stitch on it. I cut the paper a little bit there, that's okay. Just so you have a fairly, not a jagged edge. If you yeah, that's pretty good. It's pretty good. So now I take out my pins. Now, there are many ways, as I said, oops, yeah, no, that's okay. There are many ways to applique a piece of fabric onto another piece of fabric. There's our 4 patch heart. It's a little bit more interesting than just a heart cut out. That's why I just thought I'd just change it up a bit. So remember we found the center. So anyway, there are many ways to applique fabric onto another piece of fabric. And a lot of people, you can do this. I'm going to get this here. A lot of people use this product here. This is a you saw me, if you had been following, you saw me do my my bird on a wire. This is called Pellon 805, and there's also something called Steam-a-Seam, which is a fusible web. Okay, this is a paper-backed product here. This product here, with a fine web on it. Now, what you do with this, if I was using this, which by all means you can, what you do is on the paper side, you would draw your pattern, and then you peel your paper away, and you affix this webbing to the back. You iron it on, and then you iron it onto the back of your fabric. And then you peel the paper away, and you have a sticky bit. The bit's stuck to the applique, and then this is sticky. And then you would stick it on and iron it on to your backing fabric. I like this. It's okay, but in this application right now, this, you must be aware, this makes your applique a little bit stiff. And we are doing blocks in our sampler quilt, and I personally, at this point, I want this to stay nice and soft. So I'm not going to be using that. And what I'm going to be using is a glue stick. Now again, you can go to a quilt store and get proper quilting glue. It's a water-soluble stick, or it's a water-soluble glue. Now what I'm going to use is this. It's an Elmer's glue stick. It's water-soluble, repositionable, and to me, it's fine. I've used this a million times. It will not gum up your needles. And what I'm going to do is I'll show you how I'm going to do this. This is just a school glue stick, washable glue stick. Now, on the back of my applique, just on the edge, just almost dotting it, just on the edge, I'm going to just do little tiny dots of my glue all the way around. Because any quilting I do will affect this. But right now, our sole purpose is to just glue this heart onto our backing fabric. Okay? So now, remember I found the middle of our piece. This is cut bigger. But the middle of this piece, and I'm just going to turn this over, and pretty much the middle of my seam there, even when it's cut down to 12.5 inches, there's my 12.5 inches. It's perfect. I can position my ruler to where I want to cut it. So this way, cutting the backing is bigger. You don't have to worry about the size of the block. So now I'm just going to push that down. That is glued down really quite nicely, just with a washable glue stick. Again, this washes out of your quilts. If by all means you want to use your Steam-a-Seam, which is from the Warm Company, by all means you can follow the directions. It's easy. The whole thing will be down. This just does the edges, which I find is absolutely fine. So that's stitched down. I mean, that's glued down really nice. Now I'm going to take this over to my ironing board and just give it a little bit of a press, just to really sort of melt that glue just around the edges here, just a tiny little bit, and then I'll be over at my sewing machine. Now, before we go over to our machine, I just want you to go to your whatever respective sewing machine you have, and what I've done here, hopefully you can see it, I've done a sample of my machine. My brother, which I'm using, has a whole bunch of different decorative and stitches, blanket stitch, all sorts of stitches. So I've actually done a small sample before I start sewing on my actual applique, just so that I know the stitch quality, the stitch consistency, the tension, everything is nice and that I like. And I've chosen a bit of a smaller blanket stitch, which I'll be showing you, and I'm stitching mine in white on my heart here. You can use any color. You can use a contrasting color. If you have bold colors, you might want to use black, or even like if you do purple, you want to match your purple, or do a contrasting. Look at your color wheel. Maybe you want to do a bright orange to pick out some of the other oranges, or if you do purple and yellow, whatever you're comfortable with aesthetically, you will be seeing your stitches. Now, you're like, oh my word, you have to be careful. You have to go slow, but let your machine guide you around. That's why I say maybe even a larger piece here of scrap. Take your time, because I'm going to show you on the machine. You want you to start with your needle on the right side of your fabric edge, because you want that long stitch, not the stitches that are going over, the long stitch, the do-do-do, you want that right on the edge of your fabric. You don't want to go on the fabric because it can look a bit messy. All you want on your fabric is the stitches that go choo-choo, and then do-do, choo-choo, do-do, choo-choo. So you mess around with your blanket stitch on your machines, get comfortable with it before you do your applique. Just makes sense. Now, again, because we don't have a stabilizer as such, because we haven't used the iron-on and it's just fabric on fabric, sometimes an applique can get a little bit crunched up. We don't want that. So what they have in the shops is, if you go to your shop and you're comfortable buying a piece, it's just pennies, but they have what's called a stabilizer. It can either be a stitched-in stabilizer or a water stabilizer. It's put on the back. It's not an iron-on. It's just a stabilizer to stabilize our stitches. I don't use that. I'm all for using what's around the house. That's why you can by all means get the quilter's glue, but this is the glue stick works. What I'm doing is I'm taking a piece of paper. Don't panic. I've done this a million times. Actually, I've had to take 2 pieces of paper and just with a little bit of tape. Your needle won't dull for just this small amount of stitching on paper. What we're going to do is we're going to actually put, as you can see, my heart on my piece. The paper I wanted to cover, so that's why I did that. So I'll just cut my paper at random, and just so that my heart is covered, and I will be, so you can see that my paper is underneath my heart. Now, if you want, you can pin your paper down. Your applique is already glued down, but if you're more comfortable pinning your paper to your backing in your applique, by all means, to keep your paper stabilized, to keep your applique stabilized. But this is what we're going to take over to our machine. Just use paper. By all means, if you want, go into your notion shop or your fabric store and buy a stabilizer, and somebody can help you. I find this absolutely fine. Now, having perfected your blanket stitch, you're comfortable, we're going to go over to the machine, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to stitch our heart to our background. Now, I'm over at my machine, my brother machine. I've set it up over here, and I just wanted to show you on my configuration, I have a blanket stitch that is set fairly small, but by all means you can make it a bit larger if you want, but I'm doing mine just a little bit smaller. Now, I have set this up, and pardon me for my hands, but I'm going to start about there on my sort of straightaway, and I'm putting my needle right next to that black fabric there. Don't have to pull my stitches up, and I'm very carefully going to start and just ever so slowly, keeping my needle right next to the black. Right next to that black. Coming down to my point. As you can see, our glue, you might want to go slowly here, has held my point pretty good. And I want to stop my needle right at the point. And then I'm going to lift up my presser foot and I'm going to eyeball it where I want my needle to come back up that point. Go slowly. There you go. And then my needle is going to come right alongside here, and then each of the teeth, the stitches, are going to come onto my heart. Now we're stitching our paper, but it's absolutely fine for this small amount. Just this, and by all means, if you had gotten if you had gotten your stabilizer, that's brilliant. But it just makes it easier to use a stabilizer for these stitches because your fabric could sort of bunch up, and oops, and you want everything to be as flat can be. So just carefully guide this. You could just almost let you're not pushing anything, you're just gently guiding that around this gentle curve. And again, this is the reason I chose this heart. Here comes the seam. There you go, right over that seam. The reason I chose the heart is it has gentle curves, because some applique can be, you know, a little bit more challenging. This is a very, very simple basic. And then you're just wanting to make sure on these curves, at all times, you're guiding your fabric so your stitches are going onto the fabric. They're not slanted this way. They're going exactly how they should. Oops, I haven't sewn on my machine for a while. So I'm just following that pattern, keeping my outside line stitched right on the outside of this applique. Now coming along here, and remember to keep my stitches right onto that applique. Now I'm coming down to this point here. I'm just sort of putting my needle down right in the very corner of that heart there. And then I'll bring my presser foot up, and then I'll start again. And then it goes right around that corner. This is my gentle sweep up. I really want you to do a few practice pieces, maybe with a circle, like so you're comfortable doing the curve, because you want to get it right. So here I come back down my curve. You can see I'm not going real fast. I'm just letting this have complete control. Now here's where I began. Now you may, there's some machines, and I think mine does too, but I don't know how to use it. Oh, no. There's some machines, even basic machines, I've never used it on this one, has a locking mechanism. I just sort of go back. This is where I started. I just sort of make sure that I can't reverse as such, but I just sort of make sure, I don't go over it, but make sure that it's sort of, I just sort of go down a few, and it sort of locks that stitch. It's not coming out. Then I pull my thread out, and there, folks, you have done your first applique heart. 4-patch applique heart. Now I'm going to go back over to my table and I'm going to show you how we're just going to get rid of this paper here. So here is our heart. Look at that. Super, super, super. Now you will know that you will see that you just have to pull this away. Look how easy that paper, just sort of hold the stitches, but the paper comes away just beautifully. Just start it, and the stitches have perforated it enough. Look at that. And that's exactly what you'll get with store-bought stabilizer, but why pay the money? So I'm just going to try to score that paper right there to get it started. And again, just ripping it apart, however which way, holding your stitches. Now, a lot of times the paper will stay. Sometimes the paper, I'm not paranoid about the paper staying in those seams, in those stitches. What I mean is I'm not necessarily going to take a pair of tweezers and pull out every single piece of paper. I've done this a million times, and the paper just disappears. I want to get the most of it, obviously, not leave large hunks. But if there's little bits in there, I'm not bothered at all. I just pull out the most that I can without stressing the stitches. That's the important part. And I'll come back, just tearing it. I'll come back and I'll clean that up just as best I can. But there you go. What do you think? You have just done a beautiful applique heart for your block. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to make a perfect 12.5-inch square. If you haven't done so, you're going to do it. Now, I take my corner, my well, whatever line that line is lining up there, but I'm just eyeballing it. I just want the same amount here and here and here and here. So I just take my making sure I have a directional fabric here, so I want to make sure that this is lined up on they're little tiny words here. So what I'm going to do is I'm comfortable there, 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 and there, and then I'm going to cut my 12.5-inch, oh, I need a new rotary, new blade. I'm going to cut my 12.5-inch square block, and look at that. So you don't have to worry this week about being out. We haven't pieced anything. And, oh, I really need a new blade. And there is my beautiful 12.5-inch applique heart. It's for our sampler coat. What do you think? Thrilled. I could have done just the plain old heart, but I thought let's just change it up and use some of your beautiful fabrics. So you make your 4-patch. Please experiment with your blanket stitch so you're comfortable with your blanket stitch. You want to do quite a few. If you need to, just keep doing it, doing practice stitches. And there you have block number 8 that we've done. It's a beautiful heart. So that's for Truelove. So there you go. And the way I like it, I'll clean this up. The way I like to do it is is because it still remains soft. Sometimes with the iron on the web, it gets a little bit stiff, and I just quite like it soft, and hence the stabilizer. So I'm thrilled with it. There you go. There's block number 8. I hope you've enjoyed making it. I really do. I'm your first applique, and it'll open up a whole new world for you to start stitching fabric, beautiful fabric on. So thanks, folks, for following along. Block number 8. We're well on our way. See ya.